you doing?
Hey Sierra, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm so excited for episode 12 of Mindful Business.
Gosh, time flies when you're having fun and even when you aren't. It just flies right by. I'm so excited about this particular subject. I feel like most of my adult life's work has been centered around patience and persistence, as we talk a lot about that in yoga. So I'm really excited to dig into this with you today. Got a shout out to Miss Wynn. So happy to see my beautiful sister here. And yeah, let's you want to wait a moment? Should we be patient and wait a moment, or should we just dive right in?
Or should we be persistent? I think we can get started. I see Heather is here and Kitty Princess. Hello. Nice to see you both. Welcome. Yeah, I think we can get into it. I mean, today is going to be an interesting conversation because we're talking about two things kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum, being persistent and being patient. So, where do you want to start, Abby? Do we start with persistence or patience? What are you feeling called to?
I love that you feel like they're so opposite, and I suppose they are, but they're almost two ends of the same stick. And I feel like you really get more patience with your persistent practice. As I said, in yoga, we talk about patience, persistence, and practice, and I really do think each of these things are a practice. And my thought today, as I was kind of trying to put my thoughts down and think about our conversation today, the one thing that kind of bubbled to my mind is, you know what? No one is born with patience, are we? Right? It's something that we really do develop. And is it through a persistent practice? So what do you think about that concept? Two ends of the same stick, or you really feel like they're just two different things?
That is so interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but I can totally see it that way now that you said it. I guess my mind was immediately thinking patience is like kind of staying calm while you wait, and persistence is like refusing to wait because you just like keep trying and trying again and refuse to give up and you're persevering. But I could totally see how after so much persevering, you kind of work yourself to a patient state because you hit a wall and you're like, well, maybe it's time to just kind of wait and see what happens here.
I think of persistence as being this prolonged thing, right? Persistence is you're showing up over a prolonged period of time. And to me, when I think of that, I think it eventually requires patience. If you don't have patience with your persistent practice, then I think you're going to be frustrated. That I think of the phrase that which we resist persists. So yeah, I it's so funny to me. They're so interwoven in my mind. So I really want to hear more about the thoughts you have gathered about this, because I love that we always have such unique perspectives. Like I feel like our core values are pretty aligned and we have such unique points of view on this. So tell me more about your thoughts coming into today.
Persistence is always kind of top of mind. I feel like we both have this entrepreneurial persistence, which is just like you show up and you work every day because it's your thing. And it's like there's nobody else to do it for you. You put in the work, you show up and you do it. And it's like I don't know, I've been in this hustle mode with good juju like this last 4 years, just grinding and grinding. And in terms of persistence, I feel like it becomes this habit of learning from your failures and starting to try and reframe those failures and trying to see them as opportunities to learn. Because anyone here, I know Heather is also an entrepreneur. I know you are, Abby, and Miss Wynn now helping you with Elevate, is probably feeling some of the entrepreneurial feelings. And it's just like, it builds a lot of resilience. And something I've realized is even though failing hurts, your chances of success are increased because you keep figuring out what doesn't work, right?
You hit exactly where my mind was, as you started to talk about, well, now the word escapes me, but failure. From failure, we get that resilience. We don't build resilience really without those failures. And so it's all part of this process of growth. Um, whoop, it's all part of this process of, am I rugging?
You are not rugging. You're all good. I can hear you perfectly clear.
Okay, sorry. That just threw me off for a second there. But yes, we don't get that resilience built up without failure. And I know that word sounds harsh, right? And there may be ways of reframing it, but no one starts off good at anything, right? We have to fail time and time again to succeed in the long run, and you don't get there without, in my opinion, either one of these things. That's why I think about them as being so intertwined.
I love that you mentioned at the beginning that no one is born patient. And that's interesting. I never thought of that way either, because I've always thought of like, how are some people more patient than others? I don't think of myself as an impatient person, but I definitely nah, I might be kind of impatient. Now that I think about it, I'm like, wait, let me like I am kind of impatient. Because now that I think about it, like the things that kind of irritate me on a daily basis are things where like I feel like my time is being wasted, or I feel like I'm like, uh, I don't even know how to put it. Like feeling like my time is being wasted is a big thing. And that's kind of a big impatient thing because certain things involve waiting. Like today, I had to go to the DMV, and that was a process that involved a little waiting, as I've been in the process of changing my name since getting married a few months ago. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling on now as well. That being said, I want to ask you, Abby, what is, I know that you've had a lot going on recently in your personal life, and I feel like you've had to dig deep and cultivate a lot of persistence. And you actually sent me a voice memo last night, and I was laughing so hard at the end of it because I could tell that despite feeling a bit defeated and just like exasperated, you were still just like, well, tomorrow I'm going to show up and it's going to be a new day and I'm going to try and do it again and we're just going to keep going. And I just love that. So I have to ask you, like, what has persistence been looking like for you considering everything going on for you right now?
I really do equate it back to patience, and patience, the only reason I have it's kind of like failure. We get resilience from failure. It's kind of the same way we develop patience. Not necessarily failure, but life will humble you, right? And it maybe is an age thing, you know. I've said this in spaces before, and I say it often because it's true. My kids have been my greatest teachers. And one of the number one things they've taught me in life is patience. I was born as a mother when I had my children, and yes, you're right. Some people are naturally more patient than other people, but I do think it's something that we aren't born, I know we're not born with it, but that we develop. It's a practice. We develop that, and life will push us into situations and humble us time and time and time again until we begin to develop patience. And the longer we live, hopefully we start to, it doesn't happen this way for everyone. I happen to be in the line of work that forces me and others. I'm constantly telling others about self-reflection, so I have to practice it myself. And yeah, I could just melt down every time life knocked me down. But if I did that, I mean, I'd be in a world of hurt. And life has knocked me down, yeah, a lot, right? That's just what happens. You live long enough, it just it just happens in different ways. And sometimes there are some particularly rough years and seasons of our lives, and I've been in that for a hot minute. Things have really humbled me, and so in that, not to be a bummer like the lead balloon, but through that, going through the valleys of life, you can't sidestep them, or if you do, then you don't develop that patience. if you go through them and you just take it one step at a time, one breath at a time, you begin to develop patience. A good friend of mine, who's also been my accountant for many years, had a moment of feeling overwhelmed about some business stuff years ago. And I said, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed." And he said, "You know how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is patience." And without that patience, I wouldn't be able to persist through things that feel insurmountable. I've had some really big challenges with my in real life business, as I've alluded to before. I'm in the middle of a legal battle because I had a brand new building built for a whole bunch of money, and I can't use it. And I'm having to take people to court for it and all these things. So, because I've faced some really big challenges, what's a suspended Twitter account at the end of the day? I know that we can persist. We can persist because I have resilience and patience, and all that just comes from life knocking you down. Doesn't that sound uplifting? Oh my gosh, Sarah, tell me your your thoughts.
Uplifting. You know, I'm glad you mentioned it because there is an element to both persistence and patience that requires withstanding suffering to some extent. And I don't know, I feel like for a lot of us, it's like as soon as things start to get uncomfortable, it's like, okay, things need to be adjusted ASAP. But sometimes it's just a part of the process. And I feel like being persistent, yeah, there can be delays, there can be obstacles. It can be a painful process as you persist through something. And the same for patience, like there's no such thing as instant rewards or results. Like there's a lot of humbling experiences that we have that force us to recognize that things are beyond our control. And both of these things can kind of feel like suffering at times. Not that like I'm saying like embrace the suffering, but I don't know. As I get older, I'm starting to accept suffering as just a part of the human experience. And unfortunately, there's no remedy. There are things we can do to minimize suffering, um, but some things are beyond our control. Um, yeah, so like how do you find a balance between the two? I love that you kind of equate one with the other, but like how do you know when to cultivate which energy? How do you know when to stay calm and wait or when to like not stay calm and take action and try and try and try? Like what signals tell you to go which way?
Again, I have to say, I one does not exist without the other, in my opinion. Like, I really think I don't know how to answer it any other way. I don't choose one over the other. Part of my daily practice is to continually show up and to continually find ways and outlets for that pent up energy, for that pain, for the stuff that comes with that, the internal resistance. I mean, who doesn't want to lose their fucking mind, right? And say, I quit, I quit, I quit, right? Our mind screams that at us, certainly, all the time. Um, I think if we have a really strong grip on our why in life and what our core values are, then there is no choice. The choice is easy. You continue to move forward, and the only way you can do that, again, for me, this is just for me, my experience, and it's really been in the last, I would say, few years that I've come to this. I've had to have a complete breakdown of my own nervous system, which happened in the last couple of years, and gone through some big health challenges to learn to baby the fuck out of my nervous system. And so I have to, for my own health, not freak the fuck out and lose my patience. Believe me, in my 20s, we'd be having a different conversation. I certainly, in different seasons of my life, had no chill, no patience. Fucking hothead. And you could poke this bear enough times that I'll get there. But it takes a lot of poking to get this bear to freak the fuck out these days because I just can't. I can't go there. And because I know my why, my North Star, my guiding light is my children, and to be continually if it were just me and I wasn't the guy, if I didn't have people I had to take care of here and all these big responsibilities, fuck, I'd probably throw in a million towels years ago and be on a beach somewhere doing God knows what. But this is the life I've chosen, and I have these people that I have to really set an example for. I really want to leave behind that when the going gets tough, you don't just crumple up and roll over and die, or then you have failed in my eyes. You fucking keep going. Or that's just what is in my DNA at this moment. And that's not going to change the older I get, right? We get a little bit more set in our ways. So, yeah, there for me, a very long-winded answer. There is, sorry, it can't go back now, but long-winded answer to your short question is I don't choose between patience or persistence. To me, both are the framework in which I try to navigate my life. And yeah, I just have to keep moving forward. And the day I stop moving forward is the day I'll probably roll over and die. Even when I'm on a beach somewhere, retired with fuck tons of money, which I plan to be, I'll still be cooking up something and moving forward. I want to always be moving forward. But yeah, with some chill and with some calm so that my nervous system stays good and my health stays good. And yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oops, I had to find my unmute. No, I love that. I do think I would imagine that being a parent also cultivates a different sense of patience and perseverance. Parent, like as you said, it's like a responsibility that you could never uh that you can never quit on. It's like whether regardless of what's happening in your life, you show up every day for your people cuz that's your job because you're mommy. So I totally understand that, and I can understand how during seasons of our life we have to, kind of act accordingly. It's like I would hope I would hope that I as I have more experiences, I cultivate more patience over time. I think for some of us it's just, yeah, you gain it through experience. Like you lose your cool enough times and realize that that wasn't productive or didn't get you very far, to realize, maybe I should choose acceptance, or maybe I should choose tolerance, or maybe I should not give up even though things are difficult right now, or maybe feeling discouraged or things being difficult doesn't mean that it's over. I feel like sometimes when things get tough, we'll not even show up for the fight. We'll just put out the flag and be like, all right, y'all win. So I know I love your thinking about this. I definitely was thinking of them in different ways. And I love the way you think about this. It's forcing me to like open my brain and my mind, and that's always a good thing. It's always a good thing to open your brain and your mind. So I love that. Patience is something I love. Something I was just thinking about the other day is like, it feels so good to interact with a patient person. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, like especially when it's a service employee and like it's a scenario where like, wow, this is frustrating, but like they're just holding me down. Like patient people just stay cool in the face of misfortune, annoyance, delay. They don't lose their temper. They don't get frustrated or irritated. Oh my goodness. I love it. The energy that a patient person brings to like a chaotic situation is like a breath of fresh air after breathing in hot, stale, musty air for days. It's like the person who just reminds everyone like, "Hey, it's okay. Like we're going to get through this. Like don't worry, we got it." Oh my goodness. Are you that person, Abby?
I am that person. I am that person. And you know what? There's a level of kindness that, as you were speaking, there's this level of kindness that goes with that level of patient person. And I think people who are really good in a crisis and crisis workers are those patient people who have the chill. And maybe there are people who are naturally prone to that, but I think for most it really has been a practice. It's a practice, and some people get really good at it, and a lot of us that have that mom energy, tend to be that way. I got to tell you, my mom is not that person, and it's probably part of why I am. My To this day, my mother was has never had patience, never has, never will, and like very, very, very little patience. None, no chill, never has had it. And that's probably part of why I'm the exact opposite. So yes, but certainly there are people out there that have it mastered far more than I do. And of course, again, seasons of my life, especially in my early days, I was not patient at all. So the pendulum swings both ways, I suppose. But yes, and you strike me as you'll be that person. If you aren't already, you'll be that person too. But I think being a yogi, people that practice breath control, people that have outlets for when they are feeling really taxed or stressed, um, people that have other practices that help us redirect when we've accumulated a bunch of that and we're not going to have any more chill. For example, I'm going through some really intense training this week, really, really emotionally taxing, super triggering trainings for survivor advocacy. It's a 64-hour. It's this weekend, next week. So 8 hour days of survivor stories, very graphic, right? And I'm a survivor, in different ways as well, of all the of lots of different subject matter that we're touching on in these couple of weeks. And we're all going through it persistently, but with a real level of patience. However, when we get overwhelmed, if we need to step out, that's what I've had to do several times. Talking about, I can have lots of chill in the moment, but we all have limits. We're all human beings. So that's going to be varying degrees for all of us. And whether it's I'm getting angry or I'm getting super emotional or triggered in any way, having these practices in place are a true lifesaver to be able to breathe, catch your breath. And if you need to have an outlet to go cry your head off or scream somewhere, or take up a boxing class or yoga or running or therapy or art or all of the above, better out than in. I think it's rather than like stuff it down. I think the most patient people, rather than stuff it down, have figured out outlets and ways to be able to like release that accumulation of energy that we all take on when we're keeping our chill in the moment.
Absolutely. I do think that patient people have outlets, and I do think patient people are mindful, and maybe not mindful in like sit and chant mantras or do yoga every day type. Being patient is a type of mindfulness in itself, because it's basically like not resisting what the moment is offering and just kind of allowing it to unfold at whatever pace it chooses to. It's quite a high level of mindfulness, actually, and quite a virtue. And I do feel like patience is kind of a feminine quality. And but I am glad that you mentioned that not all women and mothers are patient. I feel like sometimes it's almost assumed that just because someone is a mom, that inherently they are patient. I think that being a mom helps you cultivate patience, but as you said, it doesn't work that way for everyone. So I do think it's funny how where our parents kind of it's always interesting how we make up for wherever our parents are lacking. And it's interesting because we usually overcompensate for it somehow because we were lacking it. And then we create our own new issues. And that is the cycle of generational. No, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But anywho's, something I was thinking about coming into this space was just like all of the ways that the times that I chose to be patient actually benefited me. And just thinking about different times in my life where really did pay off to be patient and just wait for things to happen. I feel like I have a tendency sometimes to be a bit pushy about wanting to make things happen how I want them to happen. But I've realized that when I'm patient, I can just take more time to think about all the pros and cons of my options without like being hasty and then regretting making a mistake or a decision. And especially as an entrepreneur, I've learned that being patient in my business decisions is very important. And that, when you rush and make business decisions, sometimes you can make irreversible mistakes.
100% true. I feel like we touched on this in another space and can't remember what, but I think that's 100% true. And I think coming into NFTs initially, it's an emotional thing, right? We're all jacked up, not recently necessarily in recent months, but especially in what felt like the beginning, right? It was so emotional and it was easy to make decisions based more on emotion. But those of us who have been persisting, talk about some fucking, speaking of persistence, all of us who are still here building in this last year have really gained probably some patience ourselves. It's been, riding those ups and downs and maintaining that showing up every day in spite of some of the different challenges I know we've all faced in the space. We're all building the fuck out of our own resilience here. And yes, I think it has helped me also be less, let's all collaborate, let's this, let's that, without, doing that work of establishing that, those connections, and not being led so much by emotion. So yes, that I think patience in business goes a long, long way. And for me, being in Web3 has really helped me develop that as well.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we have been patiently persisting through this bear market the last several months. I think all of us thought that things would get better by now, and it hasn't yet. So we're just hanging in there. Better days to come. At least I hope so for my crypto portfolio because I am down bad, honey. I have no choice but to hold. And it's so funny because it's like I see these hold to zero memes and I'm just like, well, you never know. You might hold to zero and then it might go back up to the moon. So anywho, absolutely. I think the bear market has forced us to dig deep. And I also think in relationships, patience and persistence is something that is kind of like the foundation of how we relate to our partner. And that these two things also just not just intimate relationships, but platonic as well. It's just if you don't persistently show up and make effort and add value in a connection or a relationship, things can kind of disintegrate. And if you're not patient with the other person, obviously you can kind of quickly turn them off. They won't feel heard or seen or valued. And it kind of just eats away at the relationship. So these are values that just kind of benefit us across all areas of life.
Sometimes you can be persistent to a detriment. So you have to know the balance of learning to let go as well, which I've really learned this year as well. I've persisted 19 years in a marriage, and I think there is a golden age sometimes. Not all things are meant to go on forever, as Robert Frost says in that beautiful poem, nothing gold can stay, right? This seasons change, and there is a golden age sometimes. But for me, I persisted and persisted and persisted until it was, not serving my nervous system, my health, my well-being, my sense of worth or value. And so I do think too, we persist and then we have to kind of audit ourselves and take a step back and see how things are serving us, and not just persist with our head down so much that we're not checking in with ourselves, checking in with our heart and our mind. Yes, keep showing up every day for those relationships, but that starts by showing up for ourselves. And if we're showing up persistently for ourselves and really really taking that self-love piece super seriously, um, I think that's a great place to start with that persistence. And then, yes, when you are fully checked into yourself and your vibe and how what your sense of worth is and how you're showing up for yourself, then you can bring that to your relationships and in whatever ways those are showing up. So you can then check in. Do I need to persist in this? Is this serving me? Is this, right? Is this, should I continue? And that's going to be a different answer for all of us. And yes, for me, I am in a new chapter of my life, and so I'm going to persist in showing up for myself as I have been, and see where that takes me. So
Yes. Do not persist blindly or ignorantly. Don't persist your back up against the wall. That is not helpful. Absolutely. I think sometimes when we do persist um to the point of aggravation or destruction. I think sometimes it's because we've invested a lot of time and energy in something, and like we refuse to believe that, like, how could I have tried so hard to like accomplish this goal or connect with this person or whatever it may be, and it's not turning out how I want it to be. That can't be the case. I must just not be trying hard enough. So I'm going to try harder and harder and harder. And then we just make the situation worse and worse and worse because we're just further aggravating and irritating it. And yes, yes, yes. I'm glad you mentioned that, Abby.
no, it was a great balance to what you had mentioned because both are true. And I loved everything you had to say just then as well. Yes. Persistence is key, but balance is key and checking in with yourself too. So I love this. This is such a great conversation. Um, what else? What are your other thoughts?
Well, honestly, I just can't stop thinking about our Halloween space. I am so excited for our Halloween space coming up. I think it's not this Saturday, but it's next Saturday. And we've been doing all this planning to make it fun and have some giveaways and have a special guest. And like, I'm patiently waiting for Halloween, but persistently working to set up something really fun and cool for us to do together virtually so that we can spend the holiday together.
I am so excited about it as well. And you have been very persistent and doing a great job of organizing so many fun things. It's going to be outstanding. Do you already have your costume all figured out then?
Oh my god, I'm actually not entirely sure. I mention to you that wait, no, I didn't mention to you. Okay, so last year my husband and I were a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we were both a piece of bread, and he was like peanut butter side and I was jelly side. But then it was weird because when we split up from each other at the function or the party, we were just like a piece of bread with like peanut butter or jam, and it was like, what is your costume? So I don't know if that's one that I can do on my own unless I just want to be like a breakfast piece of toast.
Oh my god. I'm giggling so hard at imagining just like the peanut butter standing over in the corner like that. I love that you guys did a dual costume though. That is so cute. But yes, that's hysterical. Yeah, I don't know how you could jazz that up, but I love it. My kids tease me because I mean, I can't tell you how many years I'm like, I've told you I'm a kitchen witch, right? Like I have a sign in my kitchen that hangs all year long that says witches park witch parking only. Violators will be toads. And they're always like, Mom, you're a witch every year. I certainly have dressed as other things, but when I would take them trick or treating, I would always just put my, trusty witch costume on because I have a couple hats. But I don't know this year. I'm like, maybe I'll go out of the box a little bit with this one. So we'll see. We'll see what. Ooh, even as I'm speaking. Oh yeah, I think I've got some other ideas. Miss Wynn is in the room. I don't know. She's traveling, I know, so she may not even be able to come up to the stage, but queen of costumes over here. Like, how does one even decide? Do you just wear boring stuff, Miss Wynn, on Halloween? My youngest did cosplay for a long time, and she would be in like makeup and costume almost every day of the year. So when it would come to Halloween, sometimes she'd be like, I'm just gonna get an inflatable costume. So I don't know if she can come up, but I bet she'll have a really cool costume and I love that it's going to be on a Saturday. That's kind of refreshing and fun. So remind me, we won't have one next Wednesday, right? We won't have a space next Wednesday. It will be on Saturday instead.
Yes, it will be Saturday instead, and I think the time is 3 o'clock, so we'll be doing it a bit earlier. That way, if anyone has a real life Halloween party to go to on Saturday, hopefully we don't impede on that. I absolutely love Miss Wynn's cosplay outfits. I always see them on my timeline. So many different amazing like video game characters and like your NFTs and like movie characters. Like you were just so creative and I love that for you. I'm sure it keeps you young at heart and very carefree.
I don't know if you've ever been to like a cosplay, convention. I know I'm not saying that right, but there's a better word, right? What is anyway, like Comic Con, those types of things. Oh, good. But I've gone with my daughter a couple of times. Best group of people. It's like being at a fish show. People are so cool and so like, I don't know, everyone talks to each other and compliments each other and empowers each other. At least that's been my experience at the few that I've gone to with my daughter. Hey, Miss Wynn, how are you?
Hey ladies, you goaded me up. Say hello. If you're talking about cosplays and Comic Cons, you got me. And Halloween, it's too exciting. It's like my favorite time of the year. This last quarter is my favorite time. So, Twitter be damned. We are gonna make it good. Yeah, actually, it's a really great thing to talk about as far as Comic Cons and Web3, because I have often said that part of why I fell in love with both communities is how lucky I've been to run across all the right people in each of them, where they are encouraging each other and telling each other like they are just kick ass, and just seeing the best in each other, right? And there is a special kind of personality in people who really, really geek out on their passions and fandoms. And again, I say all this, and all of them can refer to either Web3 or the cosplay community. I started cosplaying almost 10 years ago. I fell in love with it in the same way, and the same feeling and the same excitement came along when I found Web3. So it makes complete sense that my cosplay has been so embraced also by Web3. Um, and I don't know. I know this is about persistence and patience, but we we said to Halloween costumes, and this is what I have to contribute to that. And Juju, I gotta say, or Sierra, I have to say that I was laughing when you were talking about your peanut butter and jelly costume, and how it gets a little weird when one of you walks away, because you're absolutely right. I've done that many a time where we're like, oh, it's not that it's a little odd without each other. There was a year that I was a Chinese takeout box, and my partner at the time was a chef, and like his was really boring if I wasn't around. But we won't talk about that. There are pictures somewhere.
Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that. it's always so good when you do like it's even better when it's more than two people and it's like a trio or like a whole group. It's like, whoa, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm sure you have to be really patient and persistent as you're putting together your costumes for these events. Like, I'd imagine there's certain stuff that you can buy that's kind of pre-made, but there is a certain level of having to kind of craft things together. And I'm sure that requires a lot of patience. How much crafting are you doing to put your costumes together?
Well, actually, it definitely requires persistence and patience, but not necessarily for the reason you think why. For many of cosplayers, they make their costumes, which is why I actually sometimes get embarrassed when people say that like I'm so amazing, because to be quite honest with you, my costumes are very simple and they're often out of the box, where and then I alter it, kind of like give it a little twist of my own. And when I say that, I mean that either my mother changes it to what I want or she fully makes it. So there is my persistence and patience, because I work with my mother every time I want one. And God bless her, she has never even asked me why I do this, not ever. So like I can't even get that mad that this Vietnamese immigrant woman is like, "All right, I'll make this thing, but I'm going to argue with you about how short I make it, how tight I make it, how low cut I make it." And I just, my persistence and my patience really has to kick in then.
Dealing with my mom has taught me the most patience of all, if I'm going to be real honest. So I can at least relate to that part. Oh, I did. I had it was actually a Buddhist monk who said the people who challenge us the most are our greatest teachers in life. So, and definitely teach us a lot of patience. I love that.
I mean, for sure. You were talking about relationships earlier, and I was in a relationship with someone who had issues with sobriety. Um, and alcohol. So I learned a lot that those couple of years. I learned so much about my own ability to be patient, my own ability to continue on through very difficult things that happen in those circumstances. Not to mention, I was the breadwinner, the sole breadwinner at the time. I often, by the way, quick note, I sometimes say bread maker because I'm I mess up the the term, but no, I was the sole breadwinner at the time. So it absolutely required so much persistence to just keep going, and patience to acknowledge that, that person's sobriety had nothing to do with me. That person's sobriety, whether sober or relapsed, had nothing to do with me. And that, that's something you really have to put in your head, especially when you're on survival mode, because you're just trying to support you're just trying to support our life, you know. Excuse me. So it's hard you just have to learn to stay in a business mind when it's necessary, even though life can get so loud. But sometimes it's actually cathartic to focus on business, I find, because then I don't have to live in my emotions.
Beautifully said. My crystals won't disappoint me. You might let me down, but my crystals won't. My goodness gracious. No, I'm glad you said that because dealing with, especially when it's someone close to us, someone that we love and we care about that has an addiction issue, definitely requires a certain level of patience, because unfortunately, these people typically do not have a level of self awareness where they can kind of be reasonable at times. And you really have to dig deep so that you can deal with them in a way that's productive and helpful, and not lose patience with them. And I will say, not everyone has that skill. I know both of you have that skill, which, wow, I am amongst some extremely patient people, which is a true honor. But unfortunately, some of us are still trying to cultivate that skill. And I guess I would love to ask you both, like, I mean, I feel like I know what Abby is going to say. Abby's going to say, do breath work and yoga and smoke some weed. But like, how do you work on your patience? Maybe I'm assuming, and maybe that's not what Abby's gonna say.
Well, I was going to let Miss Wynn go first since you knew what I was going to say. No.
I'm happy to. And I didn't know what you were going to say, so I want to hear it. Besides the smoking pot, which, by the way, ironically, I started doing with that partner who was supposed to be sober. So, eek. But I actually needed it. And maybe they did too. That's something I can give a little grace about, but it certainly wasn't. Overall, the substance abuse wasn't great, and I think weed is wonderful for people who can use it in the manner it should, and in the same sense that alcohol, right? Um, but that I digress. I digress. Did you ask us how we became the sole breadwinners or bread makers? Was that the question?
you're you're absurd. No, the question is like a tip to, so y'all are clearly very patient people. I know you're both patient. What's a tip that you would give someone who's listening who's not as patient to like try and help them cultivate some patience? Like whether it's like a practice, a habit, a supplement, an illicit drug. Let
Okay,
us know.
okay, this
What
I
are
can
your
do. This I
tips?
can do. I was gonna say the other one was like, well, how to become the sole breadwinner. that's that's another one. But okay, I would just say that um, one of the most difficult things to learn, but is the most rewarding thing to learn, is learning how to give grace. And giving grace also requires patience, because what that requires your brain to do is to pause and say, I need a really human moment right now. I need to sit in this person's feelings, even though I'm in mine as well, and really acknowledge why they might be behaving this way. And I'm an empath, so that's not that difficult to do as far as feeling what the other person is feeling. But learning grace and patience in a state of difficulty, anger, sadness, uh, you just gotta practice grace, and it is a practice, and no different than going to the gym and hitting those weights. You have got to practice in your brain every single time you unlock a moment, you get a wrinkle. I hope to die with a brain so wrinkled that it looks like that lady in There's Something About Mary. Because that means that I unlocked a lot of places in there that really worked. I really worked hard to go. So I would just say, number one thing, if you can practice grace, because it goes hand in hand with patience and really persistence too.
I love that. And you do know my go-to answers, but what I will say, you continue to say the word cultivate, and I think that's really the heart of the matter. It's a cultivation, which indicates it's not some overnight like turnkey, check this box, I've got it, I'm ready to go, right? It is a process and a practice, and something that I think is really helpful. Maybe you're not ready to have kids, right? Maybe you're not going to have kids. So um but having something outside of yourself that you're taking care of and that you're responsible for, maybe it's a little garden on your windowsill, maybe it's taking care of somebody else's pet if you can't have them, maybe it's volunteering at a shelter, maybe whatever, just taking care of something outside of yourself can be a really beautiful way of cultivating patience. Any little living thing that needs your attention, whether I've got birds, I got cats, I got kids, you know what I mean? Something that's constantly pulling at you is a wonderful opportunity to develop patience. And yes, of course, breath work is a great way to work through those challenging moments while you're developing your patience. And yes, I am a huge advocate for utilizing THC if it works with your system. And if, yeah, if you're doing it mindfully, and there's some days I don't do it so mindfully. We all have our moments. So
Got some kids, got some cats, got some some birds. Oh, I love that. I This was really amazing. I feel like I spend a lot of time talking in these mindful business spaces, and today I got to do a bit more listening, which required a bit more patience, and it was very nice. I learned a lot. You and Miss Wynn have awesome, awesome experience and wisdom to draw from. And look, we had, despite not having the actual Elevate account present, we got Team Elevate. So everybody's here. Elevate is here in spirit. That being said, we are coming up on the hour, my friends. It's been really awesome. I don't have too much else to add. Is there anything else important you think we should cover before we wrap up, Abby?
Other than stay tuned, if you are an Elevate fan, stay tuned to both myself and Miss Wynn's page accounts, and maybe our Discord, as we try to resolve what happens next with the Twitter saga. But other than that, no, I'm just excited about our upcoming Halloween session together. And my mind's already turning on costumes. And I'm going to pop that link to our giveaway after I get off of here so that that doesn't escape me.
Yes, I am so excited. Okay, so some details in terms of what to expect. So, and this is so funny because our Halloween party episode is episode 13, which is like a spooky number. So, our Halloween party episode will be Saturday, October 29th at 3 o'clock Eastern. We're going to have a costume contest. So, we're going to be having whoever's comfortable sharing photos of their costumes will vote, and they'll win an Elevate NFT, which is really exciting. I've decided to give away some spooky crystals from our crystal store, Good Juju, which are personally my favorite. We have like witch hats and pumpkins and all types of things. So, a spooky crystal of your choice. And then we'll have special guest Jana Stern join, and I believe she's going to be doing a live card reading, which is going to be really amazing. So basically, to qualify, you just have to like be in the Twitter space, follow the host, share the space, kind of basic stuff. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us live, and if not, it will be recorded. Otherwise, this has been an amazing conversation. We record these and put them on YouTube if you're joining late and you want to listen back. They're also recorded and posted on Twitter. And I think that's about it then. I'm going to start to close the space down. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. And we'll see you next week. Sending out lots of good juju and love. Bye, y'all.